Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be looking at a scenario of what if WICSO's North America had a country draft. Now I did one over in the European version of WICSO here, or WICSO version of Europe, sorry, words, and yeah, that's going to tie into what I'm going to say next, but yeah, this I've already done over here, and I feel like the next continent that should probably get the spotlight is over here in North America. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Anyways, what I was saying earlier, I've been trying to do each and every one of these videos in one take, so I have less time I have to spend editing on these, more time I can spend recording actual videos and living a life. Because I mean, who doesn't want to live a life? And also, recording these videos is fun, so yeah, I like doing that. Anyways, let's jump right on into this video because I know it's going to be a longer one. And yeah, I don't want to spend time having to like go through this if I mess up and like spend like a minute thinking about stuff. So yeah, we're not going to be doing that. To start off, we're going to have the red country. Whoever's red, they're going to be able to pick first. And that's probably going to be the second strongest country for most of the continents that I bring into this. So for this scenario, that will be the country of Mexico, or at least East Mexico. I don't really know what the definition here is because, well, there are two Mexicos. This one over here, they've definitely fallen off in this version of the map. So, yeah. From here, we obviously head on over to our number one power, which is the American country. Now, in the Europe video, I didn't really do it based on power. I just did it based on regional conflict. Because if I did it on power, it'd be really one-sided. Because the Dutch are just so overpowered, and the next strongest country would probably be Russia, maybe Norway, and that would probably create a war that would never end because countries in Central Europe would be picked by both sides, and it'd just be going back and forth and back and forth. That can't really happen here, so we can just pick the two strongest countries. And so, yeah, as I said, the red team will be getting the first pick, and the most obvious first pick for the red team will be over here in California, as they will be the first country drafted into this war. From here, we're going to follow this same logic, as the next strongest country will be picked by America, and at this point, I feel like that title would probably go to the New York country. In real life, New York is a pretty economically and populous region, so yeah, it's pretty developed here, and I probably presume it's about the same here. And yeah, next up, the next country that will be drafted by the red team will go ahead and be the West Mexico country. They are probably the next strongest country after New York. To be fair, there are not very many strong countries over here in North America, so yeah. At this point, the next strongest country is pretty hard to pinpoint, but I probably want to say it would be this Ontario country. It might be small, but this region is like it was part of the core like French colony that existed at one point, and it'd probably be a little more populated than you would think. And now is probably the time that I should enable major cities. Oh, you only have two. You know what? Ignore what I said. They're just gonna get picked because why not? Anyways, from here, we're going to move on to the next country. If I can stop zooming in. I hate when it does that. It just randomly zooms in. But yeah, from here, we're going to see the next country getting picked, which will be Central America on the red team. You know what? I'll make it a, like, thing I do, because if that Ontario country didn't get picked, the blue team would get Central America, which would basically automatically win them the war, because Mexico really should only have to deal with one front. From here, we head on over back to the blue team. We'll be picking up the next strongest country, which will likely be Caribbean. Once again, don't know much about these guys. It probably is Caribbean, but I mean, island nations are tending to be weaker, so who really knows? From here, the red team will get the next pick, and they will pick the central kind of Texan country. It may be landlocked, but these guys are full of spirit and would probably fight to the death. From here, we head on over to the blue countries. We'll be picking up the Hudson, Ontario country. This guy's probably the next most populated, at least. I mean, it's probably most important to get population when it comes to this kind of thing, because you're fighting an all-out war, and that's probably the ideal choice. From here, we're going to see a thing being done that will hugely relieve pressure on the red team, and that is the picking of Alaska. Because, I mean, if Alaska wasn't picked, then the blue team would have yet another advantage as the red team would be fighting two fronts once again. And yeah, from here, we check up with the blue team again. We'll be picking yet another Canadian country. This time, it will be the northern Quebec kind of country. Um, I don't think this country's ever really done anything but unite into their southern neighbor. So, yeah. Anyways, from here, we head on over to the next red team pick, which will be the Arizona country. Same reasons as Texas. They're just probably a little less populated. Next up, we're going to see the blue team picking up their first country in this region, which will be the Louisiana country. And from here, we see the red team picking up their first country all the way over here. And that country will be this country thing here. And on this same train, we're going to see New Brunswick getting picked up by the blue team. From here, the red team will make the obvious next pick, which is the giant behemoth that is this central. What? Clone stamp? I don't know if that was visible, but it just appeared up with a pop-up. But yeah, from here, we're going to see all this falling under Central Canada. I know these islands are owned by Greenland, but yeah, I'm just going to give Greenland to the red team anyway. That'll be their next pick. And so the blue team will be getting two picks here. The first one will be Yucatan, and the second one will be Nova Scotia. From here, the red team will go ahead and add on to their territorial bulk, as they'll pick Oklahoma. And from here, the last pick will go over to the island of Newfoundland, which will go ahead and join the blue team. So the red team is entirely connected but one country, and the blue team is entirely connected but one country and a few islands. So, yeah, I wonder how this will look. There's more red, but that never really means that one side is stronger just because of size. So, yeah, let's jump right on into this war. And to start off, we're going to see the isolated countries getting an absolute beating as we head on down to the Yucatan country here, who will immediately have a spearhead take their capital. From here, their entire that's not west, eastern coastline will fall. And as well as that, their inner territorial in the south will also fall. And at this point, the country will go ahead and capitulate. From here, we head on over to this guy, who will go ahead and put up a much better fight. First, they'll lose this island, and then they begin to lose territory on the outside. And this is because, first of all, they're more populated, and second of all, their capital isn't that close to these other countries. Of course, Canada is a much more vast amount of territory, so it makes more sense for this to happen. But I mean, at the same time, like, if you're further south, you're probably more developed in population wise and having like cities, but I mean, you know what? It's fine. And eventually, this thing will fall over to the Blue Team Alliance. It would never go any other way. And yeah, from here, we're going to stay on a similar trend. And goodbye, Capital. A very quick operation will be used to link the blue team through central Canada. And from here, American forces very quickly move in to to occupy key military and major city areas throughout central Canada. This area is very easy to invade as they kind of just push up against this lake with ease. No consequence comes of this whatsoever. And we're going to see the Americans getting away with taking basically all the major settlements in this thing. There's still some, of course, but they're not relevant. And from here, we're going to see a landing over here in Baffin Island made by the Kabakwa people. They're very quickly going to take both of these major cities in this island. And from here, they're just going to stop the invasion because they don't need to invade that area. From here, we head on over to the Texas region, where we're going to see a brief advantage being had by the red team as they push into Louisiana territory and down their coastline. And from here, we head on over to Oklahoma, who is going to experience a similar thing to central Canada, in that they're just so underpopulated that Americans can kind of just push in. And they're going to use this kind of as a staging ground to begin a push into California. And they're going to take a major military base in this region here. As California can't really defend much of this area because, of course, their core population is over here. And this is kind of isolated, so they can't really do much about that. From here, though, we're going to head on up to this small region here, We're going to see a small Alaskan-led force entering in and occupying this major military base here and beginning to push out towards this major city. It's somewhat of a distraction, but yeah, I don't think that's going to do much. From here, we're going to see the Mexican Navy surprisingly doing well at holding an assault on the Caribbean country, and from here, they're going to occupy about half of the island of Cuba. And that's before American forces will make a landing in the landing, and they're going to cut this thing off entirely. From here, a huge loss will be had in the Mexican naval forces as they lost big. And yeah, this is going to lead to a whole fallback on most of these other fronts, as now Americans are pushing Mexicans back on all fronts. From here, we head up on to this area here, where the blue team will continue to see dominance. This is kind of a trend that's going to be set up pretty early in this war, and it's a trend that will not be going away because, well, if it went away, then yeah, that would not be good because that would imply that something bad's happening over here, but it won't. The only area I don't see the Americans capable of invading is over here on this coastline because it's just so populated, and that wouldn't be popular. But we're not talking about the people's opinions in this video because we don't know the people. Anyways, from here we head back to Oklahoma, where goodbye capital. Okay, that's just a trend the blue team's gonna set up, and from here they're gonna occupy the last remaining military bases in this kind of country. And from here, this thing is not even a country anymore. And they can kind of just push through this area without much a problem because this thing is not really a operating country anymore. It doesn't really matter. So, yeah, they're just going to push up to the borders in most regions. Sometimes they push through the borders, and other times they just stop because their force is occupying some of this land. And yeah, from here, it's very obvious that the blue team is winning. Let's check up more on that. As we head up to Greenland, who is going to go ahead and lose this major city, then they're going to lose their capital. From here, they're going to lose this major city, and the Greenland country is basically left with no other choice but to, you guessed it, surrender. And yeah, this is going to be a little complicated because the blue team is not going to occupy these islands, but I'm just gonna color it in now because it'd be harder to color in the specific islands that the Greenland country owns. And yeah, you know what? Let's just pretend like they did all this so far. And yeah, the blue team is now much larger than the red team is, at least by the looks of this map. I don't know for sure. But yeah, from here, we're going to see the blue team basically capitulating the rest of central Canada, basically how they did with Oklahoma. Their foreign forces occupying this region up here, but they're basically going to lay claim over all this area after taking these major military bases because, well, there's nothing up here that can be occupied, really. So, yeah, there's not really a war going on there, so you can't really color it in that way. So, yeah. Anyways, heading back to this area, we're going to see a brief counteroffensive into the capital of Oklahoma, which will not set up the country again, but it's going to attempt to do so. But yeah, from here, we're going to see a brief stalemate occurring here as a battle for this major military base will happen. And it'll be a long battle, but eventually it could decide how this front eventually goes. From here, we head to the south of this area where another counteroffensive will form as Texan forces and Mexican forces will prepare an assault on this major city and will retake it. From here, they will take this port here before they are stopped once again as Louisiana and American forces have arrived to the area. From here, we're going to see a special quick operation that the Mexicans will do into the island of Jamaica. Guess they didn't learn their lesson, but at least they're able to take the full island now. From here, we're gonna see a whole bunch of stuff getting wrecked in these major ports over here, and eventually a landing will be made on Trinidad and Tobago, which will take the island. America is kind of upset that these islands are being taken, so they're gonna send their fleet down. But surprisingly, their fleet will not be able to successfully deter these, and eventually these smaller islands, including Puerto Rico, will fall over to the red team's navies, which are kind of ambitious with this. And yeah, they know that this southern area is more under their control than it is America's because America is focused on fighting in the middle of Oklahoma and Colorado. So they're not going to be all too worried about this area because this area is kind of harder to invade and just honestly let it drain their forces. And yeah, this will be seen as a devastating landing will be made over here in Haiti, where a huge campaign will emerge, but inevitably it will end with a stalemate on an island, which is weird because you don't hear about that much. Anyways, we head back to this front here where we are going to see that these forces have definitely been drained. Now it's basically only Texan forces fighting here. When you're only fighting a tiny country who you would absolutely slam in a fight, they're going to get pushed back. They will fall back to this area around their capital, but that's not really what they're worried about because they're more worried about their invasion into Mexican territory, which is going pretty well so far as they've taken a major city, a major port, and two major military bases, which is kind of huge because America hasn't really lost any important land, whereas Mexico has now. So, yeah, let's try and put a change on that. California will launch a counteroffensive into this region here. It doesn't really mean much because there's nothing here, but they will go ahead and support this assault here as they will begin to push towards major military bases, which have a lot of major personnel, and they will take one and they will begin pushing towards another one, and they will take it with relative ease. From here, they're going to unite this front into one, which is surprisingly easy. From here, they will launch an assault on this major city, and they will be able to take it. This is the first major city that the Americans have lost in this war. It might be the only one, but this is pretty big because these countries over here in your west have been able to do this to you. And this front, you are not winning. And this is seen as the red team will win the fight of this major military base here as they begin to flood back into Oklahoman territory, as they begin to liberate parts of this country all throughout, as they will retake all major military bases. And yeah, this, or actually most major military bases. And yeah, the red team is now gaining on most fronts, except for this and this. So, I mean, most fronts. Anyways, from here we're gonna head on over to this northern Canadian area where we're gonna see the blue team doing a special military operation, pushing through this taiga, I want to say this area is, up to the Alaskan border and beginning to threaten this major city here as they enter into this area, but they don't really elsewhere. They're kind of just threatening it because they want to stop this invasion without putting much to it, really. Although they know it's mostly Californian forces, they want to kind of stop the idea of that happening. But that's not going to happen as Californian forces begin to pile up in this area and they begin to push out towards this major city here, which begins to become a concern. As well as this, mostly Alaskan forces begin to compile in this area as they begin to push towards another major military base. These weird bulge spearhead strategies are working for the Red Team Alliance so far, and we're going to have to see how that continues to go. From here, we head on over to Hispaniola, where a lot of the forces have pulled out, but eventually the stalemate will still be broken in the favor of the red team. From here, they will go ahead and occupy all of what is modern Haiti. And from here, another landing will be made over here by this major city, which will easily fall. From here, we see this island falling pretty easily. After all that, it fell that easily? Huh. And from here, the concern is high, and American naval ships are now bombarding the lower Antilles and all those islands. So, yeah, from here, Mexico has basically achieved what they wanted, and that is a solid control south of America, and now they can begin to push back against this front, which they will do, but they're not going to gain everything back because, of course, the American military is superior against theirs. And so they're going to have to re strategize. And so they will begin to stockpile their forces in this area here, and will kick back to the Texan border. From here, they're going to push in, and they're going to take the capital of the Texan country, as this is pretty huge. The Texan country has done a lot, as they've supplied a whole bunch of manpower to this front, and now they're missing a capital, which is their biggest city by a long shot. All these other major cities are pretty tiny. So, yeah. Mexico will take the initiative as they begin to retake a lot of their land in order to help the Texans uh, reestablish their dominance in this region, but that just won't happen. From here, we head up onto this front here where, okay, that just happened. The forces of the Californians and the Alaskans are doing surprisingly well in invading into the middle of America and taking their major cities. This is not good for the Americans, as this whole chunk of land is now completely under the influence of the Red Team Alliance. So they're going to have to officially do what they were not wanting to have to do, and that is invade into Alaska, as they will take this major city with relative ease. From here, they are kind of just gonna do a straight up spearhead outwards towards this next major city, and they're gonna take that too. From here, Alaska now has no major cities between them and their coastline, so all of this land is now vulnerable. This is pretty big because this area is filled with a whole bunch of resources that the American countries could use to fund their war effort. So, are you going to pull out of this area? No, because you don't want to lose this sphere of influence that you kind of have that kind of trades for this region loss that is down here. So, yeah, you're not going to do that. And so the war machine will growl and it will continue on its movement as it now takes a major military base, begins to push directly across this area towards the Californian border, although it's not going to near that, and instead it will begin to push towards this major city here, in which it will actually be able to easily take, as there's not really anything protecting it. From here, they're kind of just gonna move up and begin to occupy all the resource excavation things in this area here, pretty much unopposed. And yeah, from here, Alaska will lose a lot of their income, but they can't really do anything about it because their allies are not helping them. And from here, we see the Americans easily being able to kick out this northern area here, and from this, we're going to see the blue team seeing a huge counteroffensive, which completely kicks the red team out of any valuable land they had occupied, and eventually any land in America. This operation was a huge success that completely shifts the tide of war in the favor of the blue team entirely. And from here, things just continue to get worse for the red team as we head down to the Caribbean, where the naval blockade has immediately collapsed as Jamaica has been liberated, and now the access that these guys have to this area over here is completely eliminated. And so it kind of just becomes an island hopping campaign where very little losses are had by the blue team, while very many are had by the red team. This is a bad look for the red team as they now begin to lose land on all fronts once again. Heading on down to the Texas area, we're going to see a massive offensive in which will lead this country almost to capitulation, as they will lose their second largest major city, and they're also going to lose their third largest major city, leaving them just with this one all the way over here, which is probably a completely different viewpoint from the rest of these guys because it's just so far out there. And yeah, from here, they're just going to do that. They're going to do that, and maybe a little bit of that. And then from here, we see the Texan country beginning to fall apart from all sides. At this point, the exact same will happen in the Oklahoman country again, as all this land will be lost, and eventually the capital will be taken as well, as long as well as this major military base up here. And from here, the offensive will move into California as American kind of offensive forces will push into the northern regions of California in order to kind of just say, oh, we're occupying it. But it's weird, but this is going to happen. And from here, we're going to head on over to the rest of Alaska, which a special military operation will be had, where they will reach the coastline, officially cutting off most of this country from the rest. And from here, they just take the capital island, and they begin to push up because they know that's the easier thing to do than invading down into Washington. So, yeah, goodbye this coastal area, goodbye major military bases. Oh, you have ports and whatnot over here? Goodbye islands. And, goodbye peninsula. Okay, I think that's everything. I think you are done. So, yeah, from here, we're going to see the Alaskan country going ahead and capitulating on over to the Blue Team Alliance. And that's all except for the Washington area that's occupied by California, but we're going to talk about that in a second. Because now we head on down to the Central American area, where we're going to see a landing in Yucatan, which will very quickly reestablish the country in the north, and will also managed to retake their capital in the Belize area, which is pretty big because this area has been occupied the whole war and it was really easily retaken. Yeah. From here, we head back to this area in northern Mexico, which will see a complete fallout as forces from all across the continent will begin to sweep through, as these three major cities here are taken with relative ease. At this point, we're going to see all this land basically just falling under the jurisdiction of the blue team, as well as the remainder of the Oklahoman country. From here, forces of the blue team will push into Californian territory, just taking whatever they want, really. This area is really underpopulated and nobody lives here, so yeah, this is just gonna happen. Eventually, these three major cities will be taken by the blue team, and at this point, we're gonna see a whole fallout in this region as the Californians begin to evacuate it, as they don't see a point in defending it anymore, while their homeland begins to fall under threatening. I'm not good with my words apparently, but yeah, from here we're gonna see bop, that's gonna happen. And the Arizonan country will be like, why are we fighting this? Well, you aren't really, because this is a scenario, and this is not at all realistic. So yeah, let's reach the border of West Mexico and begin to invade them, because we don't really need to care about war logic anymore, because the red team is definitely going to lose this war. From here, we're going to see these two major military bases falling, and then this major city, where we're going to see the full collapse of the Arizonan country, as that's going to happen. And yeah, they have now made it into the western populated area of California. From here, they're kind of just going to move down and they're going to take all of this land here, even the capital of West Mexico. And very quickly, we're going to see this country fully collapsing over here, and it's not as populated areas, over to the blue team. At this point, two fronts are pouring down into Mexican territory, taking major cities pretty often. There's nothing you can do, Mexico. You're going to lose all of this northern territory eventually. And from here, they're going to very quickly begin to collapse as blue team forces are pushing in from all sides. And that does include the Yucatan area, which has now been fully liberated, and now forces begin to pour out into them and Central America. At this point, the front lines will all reach the capital of the Mexican country, and they will successfully capture it. From here, Mexico will completely surrender, not the border, because borders can't surrender. And at this point, the Central American country will be forced back to a point where nobody really cares about them, so they're just going to set up a defensive here for now. From here, yeah, the red team will have yet another division, and the Baja Coast will be very quickly eliminated by the blue team. At this point, it's kind of a hard objective. You're gonna win eventually, but it's just really annoying to invade. The easiest area to invade is the inland areas that still remain, as they will probably just push into a lot of these areas, which are in like northern areas of Arizona and whatnot in real life. So this area will probably be a little easier to invade and occupy. From here, they'd probably invade up from Washington, because this area is much more occupied than this area is at this point, so it's a lot easier to invade. From here, they begin to push down, take major city by major city, and eventually from here, they're going to reach this area, to which they probably begin to move in the south. And at this point, these countries would probably surrender because there's nothing really worth fighting for. At this point, Central America. And of course, Central America would win this war by a long shot, right, guys? They're going to push back all the way into Mexico. They're going to retake Mexico's capital. I'm kidding. And from here, we're going to see blue team forces pushing into Central America and beginning to take major cities and major military bases and ports one by one. From here, we're going to see them reaching the capital, where there's not going to be any struggle in taking this major city whatsoever. Eventually, a landing will be made in the Panama Canal region, and this whole area will fall. Eventually, a landing will happen here, and this whole area will fall. From here, the whole area of Central America will be taken, except for the Darien Gap, because they don't want to invade into the Darien Gap. But for simplicity's sake, we're just gonna do that. Anyways, that's gonna do it for this video. The blue team has won, as you can see, and yeah, this is kind of obvious because America is probably the strongest country on this version of the WICSO map. So, yeah, congratulations, America. You've done it. No one had doubts in you. America could probably take on most of this continent, maybe minus areas like New York and some of these Canadian areas, just because of how populated it is and whatnot. So, yeah. Anyways, from here, I do want to say if you watched all the way through this video, make sure you do subscribe. It really helps me out. And also, liking tells me you enjoy these types of videos. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say. And I'll see you all in the next video.